Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from AzureAutomation.com, and today in this video I'll be talking about data-driven testing in Playwright with C#.NET in NUnit. We have been talking about Playwright with NUnit combo or a couple of videos before, and in this video I'll be talking about the exact same thing, like using the same code that we discussed about Playwright with NUnit in C#.NET, and we'll be using data-driven testing to see how we can make use of data-driven testing in NUnit Test Framework. So that is the most important thing that we will be discussing in this particular video. So the first thing that you can notice that every time while we try to perform any operation within our test, for example, as you can see over here, we try to enter the value like the username as admin and the password as password, something like this. All these things we have did like a hard-coded value. So now that if we wanted to make like a data driven, which means the data can be brought from a different source, if we could able to do that, then that is what is going to be something that we are going to mostly do within our day-to-day life in our testing world, right? So in order to achieve that, the first thing that I'm going to do it is, what is the better way of bringing the data into this particular test? There are many different ways that is available. For example, you can bring the data from an Excel sheet. Nobody really do that these days, but if somebody really do that, then I probably ask them to please change that kind of mentality to bring it from an Excel sheet. Rather, it is better to bring it from JSON file if they wanted to really have an external file of data to bring it data from. So that is and one way of bringing the data like Excel sheet or JSON. And there is another way which is going to be from the class file itself. And that is what we'll be discussing in this particular video. So we are going to use some test source to bring the data into this particular test method so that we could able to achieve the data-driven testing. So the first thing that I'm going to do it is, how do I actually bring that data into this particular test? So in NUnit, there are an inbuilt like attributes available which you could actually do that. And the one thing which you can easily find while you search for test, and then if you see over here, there is something called as test case source. So this is the attribute that we are going to be using right now in this particular video. So you can see that while I use this test case source, it tells me that you need to pass a source name, and then you need to pass a category. So you need to create all these things to make use of this particular test case source. But at the moment, we don't have any test case source. So what is the source that we are going to be bringing in over here? So the first thing is, I'm going to see if I could able to create a concrete type or a class file which can be easily bring in the data over here. So my idea is, I wanted to do something like this. So I wanted to say, like, if it is going to be an username that I need to key in and the password that I need to key in, then it is basically a login operation which is happening, right? So I wanted to do something like login.username. And similarly, I wanted to do login.password, something like this. So this is what is my whole idea that I wanted to do. But if I wanted to do like a login.username, login.password, like a concrete type of C#, then I need to create a type which currently I don't really have. So I have to create that concrete type. So the way that we can do the creation of the concrete type is, we can go to our project over here, and then we can create a class. And then I'm going to say login model, something like this. So this is going to be the login model, which is going to perform those operations for me. So I'm going to say public string username and then public string password. That's it. This is the two things that I really wanted to do for this particular model. And once I have this, I can then start using it within my class file over here. But still, we have not addressed the way that I'm going to key in the data of what is called as the admin as the data that I need to supply to the username and password for over here. So how do I actually do that? So the way I'm going to do it is, I'm going to create an method, something like this, like public static, and then I'm going to say void. I'm just going to give a name over here like login, something like this. And this login method is going to do a return for me over here. So I'm going to say return new, and I'm going to say login model. And you can see that now you got the idea what I'm trying to do over here. So once I do that, then I can pass the username and password over here. So you can see that this is the username and this is the password that I wanted to return. But you will notice that once I do this, so basically this code can be splitted. If you are new to C#, you can see that this is how the code is actually being splitted over here. So I'm going to create a new login model, like a class file. I've called the class file's default constructor here, and then I'm calling its member, username, and password. So these two essentially. So that is what I have used, and you see that that is the usage as well. So I have did this over here, and now this login model class file has got those values for username, which is admin, and password. That is what exactly I'm looking for as well. And I'm trying to return out from this particular login method. But while you try to do that, since you have given void as a return type, this is not really going to work. So we need to do login model as a return type, and you see that this code is going to be legal. So now you may be thinking that this is the data source that I really wanted, so that I can pass in for this test case source, something like this. So how do I pass that over here? So basically, if you're going to be passing any of the concrete type in the C# world, you cannot just say like new of login. I mean, if you create like new of login model like that, then it's going to be like a new class file. So that's not going to really work. Or if you wanted to use the data source, which is going to be login. So if you try to call the login method itself over here, and you see that that's not gonna work as well, because you definitely need to, you can't really pass a method, something like this. So how do I really get around this particular problem? Well, there is a keyword in C# called as name of keyword. So this name of keyword is going to help you to bring in any of the method that you wanted to pass in with that particular name, which is going to be login method that we have got, just this guy. See, now it is kind of legal over there. But once I do that, the NUnit is actually complaining from the compile time error over here. It tells me that like this particular test case source does not returns an enumerable type or IEnumerable, which implements the IEnumerable itself. So instead of Playwright NUnit demo.login model, it is returning. That is what it's trying to return over here. So we need to somehow return what is called as an IEnumerable type of login model. So once you do that, then this code is going to be starting to complain that, hey, I can't really convert it to an IEnumerable type. So what's really going on? Well, in order to resolve this particular problem, you need to do an yield return, and this particular code now starts to be more correct, because so yield is a keyword in C# once again, which is going to be helpful for you to return at that particular point of time. Like every single time while you try to query it, it knows that it is going to be the 0th index, and then it's going to return the particular value to the caller. And next time it's going to be called, then it's going to return the particular item to the caller, like the next item from that particular index. So the first one is going to be 0, second one is going to be 1. That's what is going to be called. That is what is this yield return of the IEnumerable type combo. So once I do that, now you see that this particular login name of is not really complaining me anything, which means now it has identified that this particular test case source data that I'm trying to pass in like a source is actually correct. That is cool. So once this is done, then last operation which I need to do it is I need to replace this test with the hard-coded admin and hard-coded password over here. So how do I do that? So the data source is login, but the return type is a login model, because login model is the one which is going to hold the username and password for us, right? So now I need to pass as an parameter for this particular test, like a login model, and I'm going to say login, not login model really, just login, right? That's it. And now this data source is going to pass the data to this test method with that particular login value. And now I can use this login variable, and I can just replace the hard-coded admin to login dot username. I'm just going to bring the username for me, and then I'm going to say login dot password. So I can get rid of this tabs, which I don't really expect to have it, and also the click. So you see that now this is the thing that we really wanted to achieve, right? Like the starting of the video, that is what we said, that is the expectation, and we did achieve it this time by pulling in the value something like this, which is cool, right? So that is the way that we can fill in the data over here. But we haven't tested that whether this is going to work, but I already tested it, so that's the reason why I'm very confident enough to say that this is going to work. But let's try to run the test and see if this is really going to work or not. So once I do it from the IDE, you know that the NUnit is not going to spawn in the UI because that is what is the nature by default, because the test setting has to be executed along with it. If not, it's not going to work. But you see that the test is already passing, which is great. But now let's say if I'm going to change the username from admin to admins or something like that. I'm going to save this and I'm going to run the selected test. This time the test is eventually going to fail because the username is wrong. So it won't log in and the employee list is not going to be identified, and the test is eventually going to fail. So this is the way we can see that we can actually achieve the data-driven testing using NUnit using the test case source option. So all you have to do is just create a concrete type, something like this, and then you can use you can create an IEnumerable of return type model and then yield return the value. Then it's going to work. Now see that the test is failing right now because it couldn't able to hit the create new as we have not even logged in. We can also see this in the UI, like what data it is trying to enter. So let me clear this and let me do an ls. Yeah, so this is the one. So I'm going to say a .NET test, and if I execute this, you will notice that the test is going to be failing eventually. There we go. That window is again pretty fast. I couldn't able to show you because it just said failed, but you see that the test is failing over here as well in the UI. One test is passing because we didn't test this particular test too, but this particular test has failed. Cool. So this is the way that we can see that the data-driven testing actually works in NUnit. In our next video, we'll see how we can even further leverage data-driven testing much better using auto fixture, but not in NUnit. I just want to get out of NUnit. I want to create a separate project, and I will show you how we can do that data-driven testing using auto fixture. This is exactly the same thing that I have already discussed in my other courses as well, in the Selenium with XUnit, something like that. So that's exactly the same thing that we'll be discussing in Playwright as well. Catch you in the next one.